6:36. Thanks for joining us on the TV, on the radio, or even online. We're going through the headlines now with writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth and showbiz reporter extraordinaire Stephanie Tetchy. Morning, ladies. Good to see you both.
Morning, morning.
Before we have a chat, let's bring you up to date with the front pages.
Well, The Times leads with Boris Johnson being set to give evidence to the COVID inquiry next week.
The Mail has children as young as 7 skipping school, allegedly, to go on pro-Palestinian marches.
The Eye leads with tobacco giants plotting to block government plans to ban future generations from smoking in the UK.
The Guardian has Israel's plans to launch a ground attack on southern Gaza.
And the Daily Express leads with UK's deal with Rwanda still being on, they trumpet.
Let's see what Candice and Stephanie make of those stories and many others. Let's we'll carry on with that Express Rwanda story, Candice, should we?
Sure.
Don't believe the doubters, it says.
Oh, yeah. So this is a story on the front page of the Daily Express. It's addressing the story that Rwanda is cooling on this deal, basically, to send migrants over there. I mean, it's been a lot of bad PR for the country. I mean, I know they've been paid already, but I don't think anyone's been sent over there yet. Not a single plane has taken off. But a spokesman for the regime said, no, we're still going to do it. We're going to try all these legal routes, you know, raising it to the level of a treaty so you can bypass human rights laws, and we'll still get them over there. Apparently, Paul Kagame, the Rwandan leader, and Rishi Sunak were seen very close together at COP28, so people still think they have a good rapport. But I personally just wonder if this Rwandan scheme is doomed. I mean, is it ever going to get going?
I think it is doomed because I think how many times does the Supreme Court have to say, no, it's not going to work, and we're keeping trying to fight to overturn it, and it's not working. I think we need to be thinking about how we're going to handle the crisis in this country first. But it is refreshing to hear from Rwanda because I think it's been a bit of a one-sided battle where we've heard constantly about the UK trying to send migrants over to Rwanda, and I always felt like, are we just imposing on their country? So it's kind of good to hear from their side that actually it's something that they actually want to be a part of as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's...
It just strikes you that no matter what we do, no matter how hard they try and put this forward, every single time there's a particular migrant, there's going to be an individual case fought by human rights lawyers. It's going to make it just so lengthy and expensive a process to even get one person on board.
But do you think this is why people are getting so frustrated? I was listening to something actually on the way in this morning about why Europe is becoming more... they were differentiating between far-right and populist right.
Yes.
But, you know, I know all the difference between all that. But sort of moaning that people are electing people like Wilders in Holland and what have you.
Yes.
But no wonder if people feel that they're not being listened to... and if action is being blocked by something which is not democratic, then you can sort of understand why people just get so frustrated.
Yes. No, I agree with you. I think, you know, the problem is people like Geert Wilders are just not a good outlet for it because, I mean, his views are really extreme, or maybe Marine Le Pen. But you're right. If the centre ground doesn't capture these issues and responsible people don't manage it, then that's what happens. People become frustrated, and that frustration gets funneled into these so-called populist movements. I mean, the big issue, though, is that the people like Wilders, they come with a lot more baggage. You know, there's a lot more. That's like sort of the thin end of the wedge, his views on immigration. But it shouldn't be a controversial issue to address these things.
No.
We should be able to address them, but we're not, like you say.
No. OK, no doubt you'll have one or two views on that, I would imagine. Should we have a look at... We've been talking about Nigel.
Good old Nigel.
Good old Nigel. But what about his girlfriend? We've got a GB News exclusive.
Yes, we do, on GB News today. She's been dubbed Nigel's secret lover, and she said, no, I haven't been a secret because I've been with him she's been with him since 2007. Her name is Laurie Ferrari. She's French, and they met in Strasbourg in 2007. Her bet is that he could potentially win the jungle. She also thinks that he could be a good Prime Minister. She talks about what first attracted herself to Nigel, and she says she loves his values as a man.
OK, let's have a quick look at her then.
Nigel probably will think that he has a duty to come back to politics. It's a duty thing.
How do you feel about that? Because if he's successful, and he's as successful as you possibly could be in politics, which would make you Prime Minister,
yeah,
that would have a massive impact on your life, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's really not on my bucket list, I'm going to be honest with you. I just that's the last thing I want. But it's not about what you want, I think, in life sometimes. It's about what is best, you know? And yeah, I mean, life has been quite enjoyable over the last few years, you know. He's loving his job at GBNEWS, you know. We have 2 dogs, we walk them, we come here, you know, it's great. Of course, the day you walk in number 10, it stops, right? You can forget about all the things you enjoy in life, and it's the pressure and it's the little, you know, funny tactics of the establishment, and it's not going to be nice. You know, if you look at Trump, Trump is going through right now, just on the basis that he's going to run again, you're just thinking, oh, well, what is Nigel going to face if he's officially standing again?
That must be quite daunting, really. I mean, you've obviously thought about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you've weighed that up and you've come to your own conclusions about that. But that must be quite scary.
I think so, yeah. It is scary. It is scary. Much scarier than the jungle, I can tell you that. The jungle is just like a walk in the park, really, when you think about it, because being a prime minister is just such heavy responsibilities on your shoulders, but on the, you know, also keeping in mind that they've done such a bad job that you can only do a better job. So in that context, I think that it becomes a bit less scary. I think that whatever, you know, if Nigel goes back, I'm not saying he is going to do it.
Yeah.
But he would be a good prime minister. I would say that, and I think he would do a good job at it.
I find that extraordinary in a sense. I mean, they must have discussed it, but there's no prospect of Nigel becoming Prime Minister.
Not yet. Maybe potentially in the future. I think that's what a lot of people have been talking about, Nigel's appearance in I'm a Celebrity. Is it kind of this unofficial political campaign for people to see who the real Nigel is, and potentially him wanting to get back into politics and eventually down the road to being a Prime Minister? So it is quite interesting, all this promo that's coming out.
It would be an extraordinary turn of events for him to become Prime Minister, because he'd have to be the leader of the major party that gets voted in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which will be the Conservatives.
Well, it would have
maybe.
to be.
Would he move into the Conservatives, or are they hoping that Reform, of which he's president, would...
I mean, would the Conservatives allow that? I mean, there are a lot of Liberal Conservatives who just would not be on board with that at all, and they would really, really oppose it. I mean, at the moment, Reform, I think, is just really hampered by the system that we have. Being a third party in the first past the post,
Yeah, well, they say
it's impossible.
The possibility of him being Prime Minister is probably almost impossible, but he could be kingmaker. He could be Prime Minister maker, couldn't he? If he was in Reform and if they had enough seats to make a difference to the incoming party, he could actually make that possible.
Yeah.
Well, UKIP, I mean, they do say, I mean, it's sort of taken as conventional wisdom that it was UKIP's insurgency that put pressure on the Conservatives to take the Brexit referendum seriously.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they did it. I mean, he's always had that influence in politics.
You have to say, as much as people may say, well, you know, there's no chance of a third party coming up and having that much electoral success. In the European elections, I know it is slightly different, but in the European elections with a Brexit party, well, they stormed ahead.
They did. On that particular issue.
On that issue.
Yes. But I think with the European elections, I mean, the turnout was never very high. It was people who were particularly energised by that issue. But in general elections, I think there are a lot of other things that come into play.
There's no doubt he is aiming to remain a very influential person in our politics, isn't it? You can tell from the way she speaks too, can't you? They've obviously discussed it.
It's funny because whether you agree with him or not, when you actually spend time with him, he's a really nice fella.
Oh, yes, he is.
He is. I think he's come across pretty well on I'm a Celebrity. I think, you know, other than the bad media headlines he's had this week, I think he's been a good teammate in the jungle, and he's also been able to clarify his thoughts on stuff such as Brexit and immigration, where I think, you know, it's easy to demonise Nigel Farage, but actually he's quite an intelligent man.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a highly intelligent man, actually.
Yeah.
And as she said, because I think Patrick Christie's asked her, why do you love him? Why are you with him? She said, because he's a thoroughly good man. And that, you can't say better than that, can you, Yvette? No, it's rather nice.
You don't have to,
nice.
You don't have to agree with him.
No.
That's what I always say, because you don't have to agree with someone to think they're a nice person. Do you know what? Because what you never see is there are loads of people in the Labour Party, Labour MPs, and loads of Tory MPs at each other constantly, aren't they, in the Commons? Actually, they're really good mates.
Get on friends.
Yes.
Get on very
Really
well,
good
yes,
mates.
Yeah.
But of course, you never get to see that on the news.
And when you see them interviewed on the news, they're very bolshy and very difficult sometimes. But actually, that's just what they think they have to be. But off camera, they're charming. Most of them are. Even the grotty ones.
Oh, name names. Talking of people who are controversial, Boris Johnson, Candice.
Yes.
Is giving evidence to the COVID inquiry next week, and it's been made known he's going to apologise.
Yes, yeah. So this is going to be quite a big story next week, I think, and it's covered in the Times. Boris Johnson's going to apologise for what he says was complacency at the start of the pandemic. He's going to say that he underestimated the threat of COVID because he looked at SARS and MERS, and they sort of amounted to nothing, so he thought that would be the same thing. But ultimately, defending himself against his critics, he's going to say, but we did make the right decisions. Ultimately, all the lockdowns were well-timed. The UK does not have anywhere near the highest global death rate, and we made the right decisions, even if maybe we were a bit delayed in making them. So this is sort of going against Dominic Cummings and Lee Kane and all the various civil servants who, have kind of pointed the finger at Boris Johnson and said he's to blame. He's going to say, well, yes, there were delays, but ultimately I got the big calls right.
It'll be very interesting to see him at that.
And he also broke his own lockdown rules as well. So, I don't know. I think I do cut Boris a bit of slack because I don't think any leader in the world was prepared for COVID. I don't think anyone could have really got it right. But I think he did show his incompetency as a leader.
I just think I have serious doubts about this whole inquiry, and we were talking about it yesterday, weren't we? That it's just, if it's something where you are learning lessons for how to deal with the next one, then great. But all this seems to be is a blame game.
Yes, I think
which
so.
actually doesn't actually achieve anything.
No.
Yes, it's sort of pointing fingers, it's everyone blaming each other, it's who's guilty, who isn't. I think a lot of the bigger questions aren't being addressed. I mean, I think critics of lockdown feel like their questions aren't being addressed. And it's just kind of becoming a bit of a drama, sort of like prosecutorial drama, like, looking at the different figures.
It's like putting people in the stocks, throwing a couple of rotten tomatoes at them. That's not what we want. We want to know what we have learned so that if it happens, because all the experts say it will happen, if it happens again, then we need to make better decisions.
Yeah.
It's very annoying.
It is very annoying. To the Daily Mail, Stephanie, pro-Palestine marches, whether you think they should be happening or not, what your personal view is, apparently it's the Mail claiming children as young as 7 skipping school
to protest. I do think protests are no places for children at all. I think leave it to the adults like war, keep children out of it. But hardline groups are advising parents on how to avoid fines from schools, because parents could potentially be jailed or prosecuted up to like £2,500 for letting their kids skip school to go to these protests. Up to 400 children from the Tower Hamlets went to one protest in London, and some kids have been seen chanting from the river to the sea. And, when I just think about these things, it just thinks of that quote of Nelson Mandela where he says, no one is born hating another person. I feel like when you go to these kind of marches, it does sometimes, for children, it plants this seed of hate within them, I think. And, I do think children should have critical thought. They should be taught that. And as they get older, if they do want to turn into activism, fair enough. But
But you get critical thought from hearing all sides of an argument.
That's it.
And that's not what you get from this. And it's not saying you shouldn't. If you want to protest, protest.
But isn't it the case that in some schools the teachers are actually advising them?
Yeah.
We won't fine you if you do take time off.
So they are trying to find loopholes. So there's like online material for parents on how they can avoid these fees. But I do think it is a shame. I just think let children be children.
I agree, absolutely. I really disagree with teachers bringing their politics into the classroom, no matter what it is, because I just think at that age, when children are so young, they're very pliable. They're not really capable of challenging their teachers, forming an independent thought. That comes later.
And anyway, they should be in school. I mean, it comes down to that, isn't it? They've missed enough school, frankly, as it is. So they should be in school. School's where they should be.
But then, playing a bit of devil's advocate here, should parents have the right then to train their children or teach their children to protest and support a cause like that? Because some parents will argue, well, that's my child. I want them to know about, Palestine.
But you're telling them what to think. But no, I mean, look, I suppose we do that with a lot of other less controversial issues.
I think school can play a valuable role in that regard, especially when they're a bit older, teaching them to self-express and to
debate.
And to debate and to appreciate other points of view. And sometimes from what I hear with older children, because my kids are still a bit too young to experience that, is they don't get that in the classroom right now. It's sort of kids are afraid to express what they think unless they know it's a teacher who will be friendly to their views. And I think that's a disaster.
Yeah, that's not right.
And children are on social media from a very young age now.
That's another problem.
So it's easy for them to go on TikTok and see all these protests and they'll be like, Mum, Dad, I want to get involved. I think children aren't really as innocent as they once were because they're so exposed to what's going on into the world. It's hard to shelter them away from it.
It's so hard.
I tell you what, should we cheer ourselves up? Should we, before it all gets too grim? Have a look at this, especially if you're still to do your Christmas decks. This is what they've done in the White House.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
I mean, they've got the money to
beautiful.
splash at it, but they always do a big, wonderful White House Christmas.
I wonder how long it
this-
takes them to get it all
Some
ready.
of it's a bit chintzy.
Some of it is, but they said they want visiting children to experience just the fun.
Yeah.
But some of the rooms are done out rather more subtly. That one's obviously totally white lights and gold. And look at that.
It's like candy cane heaven.
Candy Wonderland.
Very American.
Yes.
But very beautiful.
Yeah.
The White House is perfect for that kind of thing.
Yes, but there's acres and acres of it. So you can go from different rooms and everything's themed.
We don't have our version of that, do we?
No, we have Christmas tree outside number 10, don't we?
Which is nice, but not spectacular.
Not opulent.
Have you seen the Christmas tree at St Pancras, where it's the library? It's a library that spirals into the sky. It's like sort of meant to be a different sort of Christmas tree.
What, a books? Is it books?
It was so funny because I showed my 4-year-old and he went, I don't like it. He just wasn't impressed by it. He was like, he wants like a proper Christmas tree with lights and baubles.
I don't know why people seem obsessed with doing something different. What department store was it where they've made the Christmas tree
Fortnum and Mason.
out of suitcases?
I think that's
That
Fortnum and
sounds
Mason.
nice.
No, it's not. It just looks like a load of suitcases.
It doesn't look like a Christmas, and it doesn't look very Christmassy.
But I think Christmas trees are your chance to express your character.
That's true.
So I like pink Christmas trees, white Christmas trees. I love opulent stuff on Christmas
All right, here's
trees.
the one. Coloured bulbs or not?
Oh, I always go for like a sort of monocolour theme. So it's like, it'll often be like copper, like various shades of copper.
Yeah, that's
What do you
I
do?
go for full-on colour.
Yeah,
I go for
I
like,
do.
I'm a bit retro, like my tree always looks a bit 80s with a bit of tinsel and, bauble, I love
that's
it.
what I do. It's all colour. It's like it was back in
I'm
the 70s.
always warm white, except for this year, the tree that hasn't yet been delivered. Get a move on, please. That's got multicoloured lights. So it's
Has
my
it?
first year being multicoloured.
Nice.
I was considering doing multicoloured lights this year in the trees in my garden outside, because I normally do the warm white, and I was like, should I do something really bright this year? You know, sort of like.
I tell you what I
cheery.
don't like, though. I don't like flashing lights or lights that chase around, or the movement. I don't like the movement.
You're not coming to my house.
How
It's
interesting.
like a winter wonderland. It's Blackpool illuminations. That's what we've done this year. though the better half is
We
from
want to see
Blackpool.
your Christmas trees, please. GBViews@gbnews.com.
But let's have a check on your weather. Here's Alex Deakin.